Soon afterward, the younger son gathered everything together and took a trip to a land far away. There he wasted his wealth through extravagant living. I had a friend in college who, upon graduating from college, went and, without a job, bought a $300,000 home. He had no furniture to put in it except for that which was in his dorm room. And most of the house sat empty for a while, but he bought the house because he'd been told all along that a college degree meant that he would do better than his parents. And so everything taught him, everything showed him all along that the best thing he could do would be to do something that his parents weren't able to. He bought a house that he couldn't afford, that he couldn't furnish, and that he could hardly live in. Thankfully, the story turned out okay for him, and it wasn't the end of his financial well-being, but for so many, that's not the case. It doesn't work out in the end. They find themselves in the middle of mistake after mistake and consequence after consequence that keep on rolling, even when they figure out the error. I think about our prodigal son in this story. That's what we call the story a lot of times, but I think we misname it because we focus then only on the prodigal son and we forget to focus on the others. The father, the older son, the servants, maybe even the people who wouldn't give the younger son a job working with the pigs, or maybe the pigs themselves. But I wanted to pull this one verse out because there's something that struck me about it, and that is that all it tells us is that he went off and squandered his money on extravagant living. Over time, we have developed assumptions about what that extravagant living included, mostly things that we might label immoral or somehow just not ethical, things that we might look down on. But what occurs to me is that as we read that, the only information that we have is that it was extravagant living. It doesn't say it was immoral, it doesn't say that it was bad, it doesn't say that it was looked down upon, it just says it was extravagant. We only get the insight that maybe there had been some immorality taking place because the older brother, in his anger, accuses his brother to his father of having squandered it on prostitutes, sex workers, to use more contemporary language. We have no reason to think that other than the brother's skepticism and anger. It just says extravagant living. I wonder if, like my friend and like so many others, the son who took his inheritance and went off to live extravagantly made choices because he thought those were the best choices he could make. Not because they're the most gratifying, not because they were most pleasuring, but because he thought those were the right choices when quickly he learned they won't. If this is sounding familiar in any way, well, it should. We make poor choices. We make poor choices because we think in the moment they're the choices that are right to be made. We make poor choices because, well, sometimes we have to make mistakes to learn. And so the rest of the story goes on that he returns to his father, hoping even for a glimpse of mercy, and he receives a party and celebration. His anger is the older son who, in his anger, accuses the son to his father then of immorality. Do we sometimes jump to those conclusions too? That someone is in a situation, in a circumstance, in a position that they are because of decisions that we would never make. Maybe we judge too quickly, judge too harshly. We look at certain addictions and we blame the person rather than acknowledging the pain of addiction. when we too might struggle with our own addictions, ones just that are more hidden or more culturally acceptable, like workaholism. I wonder if we could pause and recognize that this young son went off and lived extravagantly, yes, but perhaps that's because he figured that was what he was supposed to do. And upon making mistakes, figured it was unforgivable, and yet found in his father's arms a love that welcomed the return and celebrated that his son who had been dead was alive again. May we be those arms for someone we've yet to meet. Amen.